So if you've been following the news lately, or more likely have a Twitter account, you've probably been keeping tabs on the United Airlines catastrophe that happened over the past week. I don't think there's anyone who really likes flying, and it's certainly not going to increase by the chances that you can now be dragged off kicking and screaming just because the airline wants to make a few extra bucks. We all have an airline horror story, and well, here's mine. So backtracking on this is all occurring when I was traveling to China for work. The headquarters for the company that I work for are located in Fuzhou, which is basically between Beijing and Shanghai. The trip itself was great and productive, and also included a trip to Fuzhou Panda World. Not sponsored. Well, the time came to fly back home, and that included an overnight layover in Beijing. To start out, we had to fly out of Fuzhou, which included an experience in its own right. It all started with me being seated in the very last row of the plane. Now, for those of you who have flown often, you know that the last row of the plane does not recline. Beyond that, I'm also snugged into the middle seat. I'm 6'4", ladies, and for someone of my build, this is the most uncomfortable position imaginable. My coworker at the time spoke Chinese and asked the guy sitting in the aisle seat if I could swap with him. His translated response, "I need the leg room. Bruh." Thankfully, I ended up getting moved to the front of the plane where there was enough legroom to fill the Pacific Ocean. Less than thankfully, the pilots seemed to be in just as big a rush to get out of Fuzhou as I was. The second we were cleared for takeoff, the pilots gunned it into the air, basically thrusting everyone into the backs of their seats. Think R2-D2 restarting the hyperdrive engines on the Millennium Falcon. The landing was just as fun, by which I mean a full-on thud onto the tarmac at Beijing International. As I said before, it was going to be an overnight layover in Beijing, so that meant taking a cab over to an overnight nearby airport hotel. The hotel itself was lovely enough. You wouldn't think that for an overnight hotel, especially because it had a lavish lobby with all the fixtures, water feature, if you could call it that. It was almost midnight when I checked in, so I was all ready to crash in my room. I must have gotten the wrong key though, because when I opened the door, there was already someone inside. Now, I'm not talking about a guest who bothered to check in. I'm talking about a cockroach the size of a quarter sitting on the pillow of my mattress like it was an Andes chocolate mint. I was, however, able to get swapped to a different room, but made sure to check every inch of that place before going to sleep. Finally, it was back to the airport for the second leg flight to the United States. I was all checked in, went through security, bags checked in, found my seat, ready to go, let's go home. But then in my seat, about 30 minutes go by. We still have not moved away from the gate. Then another 30 minutes go by. The doors haven't been sealed and we are not even taxiing. 15 minutes later, the flight attendants get on the overhead system to announce that the mechanics are checking something with the plane. And then another 30 minutes later, the captain gets on the PA.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. At this point, maintenance has noticed an issue with the plane's mechanics. They don't think it's an issue, but we're gonna play it safe. We're waiting on approval from our headquarters in Chicago. We'll have more details then.
How comforting to let us know that maintenance was going to let us off in less than ideal conditions. I'm doing my best to keep calm. I've got a book, I've got a Sudoku, I'm fine, things are going to be okay. But the lady across the row from me is far from that scenario. I'm so glad she was not verbally complaining to everyone because none of us needed that, but she was giving off every body language emotion possible to let us know that she was inconvenienced. Finally, about 2 hours after we were scheduled to take off, the big moment came.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. After hearing back from Chicago, they're making the official decision. We will not be taking off.
Just like that, the passengers broke into a joint groan. Or at least half of them did. Seeing as we were flying out of China, half the plane did not speak English. So we got to hear the announcement again.
女士们，先生们，这是你的队长了。从芝加哥回来后，他们正在做出正式的决定，我们将无法起飞。
That's right, I got to hear disappointment in 2 languages. I honestly thought that frustration Francine was about to explode. So it was off the plane and on our way to another overnight hotel. I get to the place and it's a huge step up from the Roach Motel I stayed at the night before. All the passengers were put up in the Beijing Crown Plaza. More so, I must have drawn the jackpot because I was put into essentially the equivalent of the presidential suite at this hotel. I checked in, raided the buffet, had a shower and a bath because it was that fancy, and then conked out on a king-size bed all to myself. The next morning, all was well. We were on a flight back to the US, and Kim Jong-il had died overnight. Not my doing.
Come fly with me, let's fly away. If you can use some exotic...
Oh, and it was a United flight.